So tonight I am going to share something I am very passionate about. It is a huge problem in my country and in my region of the world, and it's something that really baffles me because I just find it incredible that it's a problem that is so widespread and that it still exists in this day and age. And that is financial inclusion, or as I called it in this presentation, financial exclusion. What we've been living here in these past 3 weeks and what you've experienced of Guatemala isn't really the reality of Guatemala. Going to Guatemala City and going to Antigua and going to the restaurants and paying with a credit card is really a tiny and minute reality of what our country is. The reality of Guatemala looks more like this. 70% of our industry and economy is the informal economy. This means that everything is dealt in cash, 100% in cash, which naturally has huge ramifications because how do you tell people to pay taxes if you don't even know how much taxes you need to charge each person because there is absolutely no way of tracking how much this person is making? So just to give you an idea, between 25 to 30% of people pay taxes for the rest of the country because 70% of people deal 100% in cash. And this is what the reality of Guatemala looks like. Small and medium businesses, a lot of agricultural practices and farming and selling at the markets that deal 100% in cash. I hope we get to see a little more about the reality of Guatemala when we go to Lake Atitlan over the weekend. And that you will have this awareness that I am bringing to notice what it's like. So why do we need financial inclusion? I believe that we need financial inclusion to really make our countries more equitable and the lives of our people more equitable so that people can improve their quality of life and those of their family members as well. Today, from Mexico down to Costa Rica and in other parts of South America as well, about 70% of the population is unbanked. What does this mean? What this means is that people do not have bank accounts, but it's far beyond just not having a bank account. It is being completely excluded from the financial sector, from the financial industry. When you don't have a bank account and you deal 100% in cash, you need to walk every single place to make a payment. If you need to pay your water bill, you need to take a bus and go to the water company and pay your water bill. And then take another bus to go to the electric company and pay your electric bill. And then take another bus to go to the phone company and pay your phone bill. So you can imagine just how much time people spend running basic errands that we are used to just doing it through our phones on automatic debit. We don't even think about paying all of these things because they don't just happen automatically. And why are they unbanked? I think this is a very important thing to address. You might be wondering, well, can't they just go to the bank and make a line and open a bank account? Well, the truth is no, they can't. When you open a bank account, you need to fill a huge amount of formularies, like 18 to 20 pages of documentation that is tedious. It takes a long time. And if you grew up in rural parts of Latin America and you were lacking education, you most likely can't really write or read well. So how are people expected to fill out 20 pages of documentation if they can't even read or write properly? Or in some cases, they can't even sign their name. And the problem goes beyond this. So one is filling out all of these tedious pages. And the other is that to open a bank account, you need to show proof of employment. But if you're a farmer and you grow your crops and sell them at the market in cash, how are you going to get a document from yourself that says that you make X amount of money if you have no way of proving it? And if you work for a farmer in a farm, and you get paid in cash, you also have no way of proving that you have employment, even though you are employed and you are making money. And also, a lot of people don't have access to electricity. So when the bank asks for a proof of address, well, if you don't have electricity and you live on prepaid phone top-ups, as most of you have experienced right now living in Guatemala for the last 3 weeks, well, you don't get a phone bill, so you also can't prove your address through the phone. So anyways, long documentation and not being able to provide a proof of address or a proof of employment are some of the aspects as to why people can't open a bank account and are excluded from the financial sector. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg situation, what comes first? A couple of interesting data points. As I mentioned, 70% of the population does not have access to any financial services. It's 100% cash-based. And then there's a huge percentage of, besides that is underbanked. And I'll go into that a little bit later. 25% of the GDP for each country in Central America comes from remittances. And for those of you that don't know what a remittance is money that is being sent from family members in the United States mainly back to family members in Central America. So it's usually undocumented immigrants that made it to the United States that are working as gardeners, for example, getting paid in cash because they're undocumented and they can't open a bank account in the United States. And they use services like Western Union. They go with cash to a Western Union branch to send cash to a family member in Guatemala, let's say, that needs to travel to a Western Union branch to get that money out. So it's unbanked from unbanked. How do people send money, right? And these people are no longer sending handwritten letters. People are now sending WhatsApp messages. And a fascinating statistic is that out of the 18 million people that live in Guatemala, there's 21 million mobile phone lines, which means that there's actually 119% phones in the country. So there's more phones than people, and 91% of the population has access to a smartphone. So how is it that 70% of the population does not have access to a bank, but 91% of people do have access to a phone? And these people, as I said, are no longer sending handwritten letters. They're now sending texts and emails through their phone. So why haven't we created the avenues for them to send money through their phones as well? And you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe this is just the bottom of the pyramid. It's the people that work in the market and the people that have farmers that are unbanked. And although that is the case, there's a lot of people that are underbanked as well. The problem does affect people across the board. And I'll give a very concrete example. We've had a couple musicians come and play here, and they are unbanked, but they are underbanked. And what this means is that although they do have a bank account, they don't have access to all of the financial services that we have access to. So if you need to pay somebody in Guatemala and you're not from Guatemala and are visiting, or are in the United States and want to send money to Guatemala, you just simply can't. You have to find somebody that is Guatemalan, in this case it was me, to transfer them with a local bank account. And because I lived in the States and I have a PayPal, I can receive money from you through PayPal. But PayPal doesn't exist here. And neither do Zelle and Venmo and Cash App or Revolut and Monzo, some companies that we might be super familiarized with. So even the people that do have bank accounts are excluded from the global economy because they can't receive payments from other people, be it locally or internationally. And you think, okay, well, maybe it's just the payments thing. But let's talk about being underbanked and not having access to financial services and not being able to invest your money. Those that do have bank accounts, their only way to invest their money is to have their money in the bank. There's no stock market in Guatemala. There's no Robinhood for people to buy stocks on their phones. There's no Coinbase for people to buy crypto. So the problem is huge. And the solution is what I've been working on. One possible solution. This will not solve everyone's problems all at once. But I am leveraging tech to break the cycle of financial exclusivity and create a more equitable country and a more equitable economy. How are we doing this? Well, we're leveraging crypto as a Trojan horse and very conscious experiential design on a digital level. Because with ease of use and education in terms of user experience and design, people can learn to use things a lot easier. And if you just think of what it was like to buy a domain by alphabet.com 20 years ago, like how did you even go about buying a domain 20 years ago? Now you go and go to GoDaddy with 3 clicks, you'll buy a domain. Building a website 20 years ago was an impossible task. You had to be a super crazy software engineer. Now anyone can build a e-commerce website with tools like Shopify, right? So why hasn't this happened for the financial sector? And that is what I'm working on. Using crypto to enable payments both locally and internationally, to give people access to loans that the banks are not giving them access to, and to give them access to stocks that currently and before crypto was a technology that was being widely adopted was not possible. Why me? Why am I passionate about this rather? Because I find it crazy that in year 2022, 2.2 billion people across the world are still dealing 100% in cash and are being fully excluded from creating wealth. And really, I'm doing this because a rising tide lifts all boats. And if we manage to make economy and people seen and included in wealth creation, it will be a rising tide for everyone. Thank you.